Hey, this is Bradley Benner with Mindset Mastery, and this is week 8 Q&A. I'm going to be just answering a couple questions. I got 3 questions that came from members, and I just want to encourage people that if you have any questions about mindset, success habits, goal setting, visualization, anything at all like that, feel free to go to bradleybenner.com, and you'll see that there's a button underneath the videos there that will take you over to a Google form where you can submit 2 questions per week. I'll be happy to answer questions on video like this, or perhaps if it's a sensitive type of question, I might just shoot you an email or do a private video response. But I encourage you to ask any questions about any of the stuff that I'm talking about in Mindset Mastery. Please feel free to ask questions over there. I encourage that because I want to know what you guys want to know, right? I need to know what you want to know. So secondly, I started doing a daily email. Most days I try to do it Monday through Friday, write a new email every single day. Obviously we just had Thanksgiving last week, so there were a few days I missed there, and sometimes some things come up with business that I'm not able to, but I'm trying to develop the habit of every single day to write an email. And it's great because all I'm doing is conveying a thought. I write this daily email right at the end of my morning routine, which is, goal setting and planning and meditating, visualization, and that kind of stuff. And so usually I have a thought on my mind that I just want to convey and just get out there. And so that's what I'm doing with my daily mindset series or daily mindset updates emails. So I would encourage you to go sign up for that. And I'm going to be sending out emails with some strong language sometimes, just so you know, but that's just because that's how I talk to myself, like internally, and I respond well to a little bit of aggression when it comes to that kind of stuff. So that's the way I write in my emails. If you're easily offended, probably don't subscribe, or just unsubscribe if you're offended. But I'm really just trying to share like my own thoughts and how these concepts have applied to my own life and the kind of results that I've seen, in hopes that it encourages you or inspires you to take whatever action you need to take to change your life to the way that you want it, okay? So with that said, I've just got a few questions here I want to answer today. I may split these up into separate videos, but I'm just going to try to run through them rather quickly. The first question, by the way, if you ask me a question and it's sensitive, I won't say your name if I do a video response because I don't want to embarrass anybody, so I'll use discretion, I promise. But this one's from Mohammed. He's been following our Hump Day Hangouts over at Semantic Mastery a lot, which is awesome. He's also been following the Mindset series. So Mohammed, what's up, buddy? Thanks for always following and asking questions. I really do appreciate the engagement. So the first one is how do we avoid becoming complacent? It's one of those things that I've noticed starts to happen and does happen, and we don't even notice. How can I spot it before it develops? Well, that's a great question. The first thing is, how do we avoid becoming complacent? You're right, complacency is natural. It happens, especially once you start to achieve a certain level of success towards an endeavor of whatever it is that you set out to do. When you start to see some progress and some success, you start to be rewarded, you start to see some fruits for your labor, it's easy to kind of take your foot off the gas, right? Lose steam, lose momentum, because you're able to start enjoying the fruits of the labor. And trust me, this is something that I've absolutely struggled with. In fact, I'm going to be really transparent here about something. I went through that period with Semantic Mastery, which is how many of you know me, right? Is through Semantic Mastery. But there was a period of time there, right before I started trying to lose weight and everything, where I was miserable. And I think it was just a culmination of many things. One, Semantic Mastery had been doing well, so I was making good money, had achieved some level of recognition in the industry, in the internet marketing or SEO industry, right? So there was that kind of satisfied me, and I had some good money, but I was miserable with myself, right? And so I allowed my depression, I guess it was, not in the clinical sense, but I guess I was just depressed and I was really kind of unhappy, which is silly because I had a ton of blessings, right? I had it, but this is what was going on in my head. And I was miserable because I was overweight. My self-esteem was really bad. My self-image was low. And I had also become somewhat complacent with Semantic Mastery. And it's interesting, but if you were to go back, and I don't encourage you to go back through some of our old recordings because I don't want you to see how fat I was, number one. But number two, I had a different attitude at the time, and I, looking back now, I see the error of my ways, and I can't change that, right? I can't change the past, so there's no point in dwelling on it. All I can do is control this moment right now, and so now I strive to be a lot more helpful, a lot more understanding, have a lot more empathy for people that are members or subscribers or followers, if that makes sense. And so I can totally understand what you're asking about with complacency, because when complacency started to set in with me at Semantic Mastery, you stop striving, you stop trying as hard. And especially in an industry that's always changing rapidly, like the internet marketing industry or SEO, for example, or anything that has to do with digital marketing, becoming complacent and losing that edge, losing that drive to continuously improve, you're going to end up being left behind. You'll be run out of the business, or just because other people will outwork you, outsmart you. There are always going to be people that are going to continue to work and continue to strive and continue to learn and sharpen the saw, right? Get to continually sharpen their edge. And so if you're not constantly doing that, then you absolutely fall behind. And that's something that I experienced with Semantic Mastery, and I started to see some lag, and some kind of really more or less like a decline in enthusiasm and engagement with us and all that. And a lot of that had to do with complacency on my part as the leading front man of Semantic Mastery, right? And so now looking back, the error of my ways was that, absolutely, complacency is something that you have to be aware of. And you, Muhammad, for asking that question means you're already aware. So that's step one, is just becoming aware and maintaining that awareness. Because as long as you are constantly analyzing your progress on a daily basis, and that's what's so damn important about doing the daily goal setting and planning exercise every morning, or you can do it in the evening for the next day, it's fine. As long as you're doing it daily. And you don't have to do it on weekends, by the way. I'm talking about for professional and financial reasons, or for your career's sake. On work days, make sure that you're doing your daily planning and goal setting and planning. And the reason why is because use the Best Self Journal. And I know, Muhammad, you do, because that's your next question. Something about the Best Self Journal, but it gives you the ability to write down, or a place that you can write down your goal and in 3 tasks. And it also asks you to analyze at the end of the day your day and lessons learned. Okay, and so in either time, whether it's the morning exercise or the evening exercise, at any point you're going to reflect on your day, and that's also a great time to reflect on your overall goal and where you are, right? And so you can ask yourself questions like, what did I learn today? What went well today? What didn't go so well? And what could I have done to improve it, right? And also, where am I in the path to achieving my goal? And is there anything that I learned today that could change that, right? Or could redirect me? Just simple questions like that you can even write down on an index card and keep them, and just refer to them often when you're going through your daily planning, whether it's in the morning or the evening, and determine and just reflect on either your day if you're doing it in the evening, or reflect on the previous day if you're doing it in the morning, whatever, and just think about that stuff. And that will basically keep you from becoming complacent, because if you start to notice your performance declining, then you know that complacency is starting to set in, right? And so you can avoid that. You can take steps to countermeasures to avoid that. So that's a really good question, though, Mohammed. So I appreciate that. So the next question was, I'm not sure if you're able to answer this on video. Not everyone has the journal, but here it goes. The Best Self Journal has a daily section for lessons learned. How do you identify lessons? Do they have to be work-related? I want to be able to get the maximum benefit from this part of the journal. Another great question, and that's why I wanted to keep these 2 questions together. Number 1, they're both from Muhammad. Number 2, because I mentioned this about the avoiding complacency. If you have the lessons learned section, or guys, you don't need the Best Self Journal. It's just a tool, right? But if you have, if you're just reflecting on your day every day, or like for me, a lot of the times I don't do the lessons learned thing in the evening. I'll be honest, a lot of the times I don't do the Best Self Journal in the evening. I just do it in the morning. But in the morning, I also reflect on my previous day, okay? Because I have time scheduled in the morning that I do every single day so I haven't developed the habit of doing it in the evening. I probably should, but I haven't. So basically what I do in the morning is I do my goal setting and planning for the day. I block out, it's called time blocking throughout the daily planner side of it, do all my time blocking, and then I sit and reflect about my previous day in the lessons learned section and 3 things I could have done to improve that day. And that's when I ask myself those questions, like what went well? In my case, I say yesterday. What didn't go so well? What could I have done to have improved? Whatever didn't go so well. What could I have done to have made it better? Also, where am I along my path to pursuing this goal or achieving this goal? And is there anything that I learned or anything that happened that needs me to correct or change course or make modifications to my path? Does that make sense? That's what I do. These are just simple questions that I ask myself when I'm writing that lessons learned section out. So I pretty much use the lessons learned section in the Best Self Journal for monitoring my path, like where I am in my journey towards my goals. But so that's where I do it, which, by the way, helps me to avoid complacency, right? Which is your first question. But it doesn't have to be work related, right? Lessons learned could be anything. It could be you learned something about, how to talk to somebody, or like maybe you had a conversation with somebody, a loved one, right? Or somebody you have a relationship with, whether it's a romantic relationship or just a friendship or something like that. Just somebody that for example, you had a conversation with them and it went poorly, and you just think about why it went poorly and maybe what you could have done to have made that conversation better, right? That would be a great point for a lesson learned. Or maybe you overreacted or reacted in some way to some stimulus, some event that happened, or something that happened at work, or when you were driving, or at a store when you were shopping, or whatever. Something happened and you reacted in a way that you weren't real happy about, you weren't real proud about when you reflect on that at a later point, right? So that later that day, when you're doing your lesson learned section, you just think back, what happened today that maybe wasn't so great? And then analyze that situation. How could I have changed that situation, or changed how I behaved or reacted to that situation, right? Because a lot of times we can't change the situation itself, but we can absolutely control how we react to that situation. So that's just an idea. Like, my point is, the lessons learned section is just a chance for you to reflect on the day, to look at anything that caused any amount of pain or discomfort or inconvenience or anything, how you reacted to it, and how you could have perhaps responded in a different way. Does that make sense? So that's basically it. The lessons learned section, I use it primarily for the most part, I use it for kind of assessing where I am along my journey towards the goal that I'm writing down in the Best Self Journal every day, right? And so I usually apply the lessons learned section to something along the process of reaching that goal. But again, that's not all the time. Sometimes I will have like more of a personal experience that I've learned something from, and so I will write that in, okay? So use the tool however you feel is best. I certainly appreciate you asking questions, by the way, as to how I use the tool, because I don't mind sharing. And it's an evolution, it's a learning process. I'm still finding new ways to make that tool even more useful for me. Okay, so great question, Mohammed.